The shoulder that changed everything. Sarah Chen hadn't slept in 43 hours. She shifted her 8-month-old daughter Emma against her chest, trying to soothe the baby's whimpers as passengers filed onto the red-eye from Seattle to Boston. Her eyes burned with exhaustion. Her muscles ached from carrying both Emma and their single battered suitcase. And somewhere over the past 2 days, she'd stopped feeling like a person and started feeling like a shadow of one. "Ma'am, you're blocking the aisle," a businessman muttered, pushing past her with his leather briefcase. Sarah mumbled an apology and stumbled towards seat 32B, the cheapest ticket she could find. Everything she owned was either in that suitcase or on her back. 3 days ago, she'd had an apartment in Seattle, a job at a cafe, and childcare she could almost afford. Then her landlord sold the building, her hours got cut, and her babysitter moved away, all in the same week. The only option left was her sister in Boston, who'd promised her a couch and help finding work, if she could just get there. Emma started crying in earnest as Sarah struggled with the overhead bin, her tiny fists clenching Sarah's threadbare sweater. Other passengers stared, some sympathetic, most annoyed. I'm so sorry," Sarah whispered to no one in particular. Finally collapsing into her seat, she tried nursing Emma, but the baby was too worked up, too overwhelmed by the noise and lights and strangers. A flight attendant appeared, her smile professional but strained. "Miss, if the baby continues crying during takeoff—" "Please," Sarah's voice cracked. "She'll calm down. I promise. Please don't kick us off this flight. Don't strand us at the airport. Don't take away the only chance we have." The flight attendant's expression softened slightly. "Do your best." Sarah rocked Emma desperately as the plane filled up, tears threatening to spill down her own cheeks. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten a real meal. Couldn't remember the last time someone had asked if she was okay. Then someone slid into the seat beside her. "Sounds like she's had a rough day," a man's voice said, warm and unhurried. Sarah glanced over, ready to apologize again. The man was probably in his mid-40s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and silver threading through his dark hair. His suit was expensive but understated, his carry-on a sleek laptop bag. "I'm sorry," Sarah said automatically. "She's just tired and—" "No need to apologize." He smiled at Emma, who had paused her crying to study this new person with wet, curious eyes. "My daughter used to do the same thing on flights." The pressure change bothers their ears. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small pack of gum. "Are you nursing her? If you are, doing it during takeoff and landing can help with the ear pain." Sarah nodded, surprised by the practical kindness. Most people just glared. The plane began taxiing and Sarah got Emma to nurse, praying it would work. The man beside her pulled out his laptop but kept glancing over, not intrusively, just attentively, like he was keeping watch. As they climbed into the night sky, Emma finally fell asleep against Sarah's chest. The relief was so intense, Sarah nearly sobbed. She leaned her head back, every muscle in her body releasing at once. She'd done it. Emma was asleep. They were in the air. They were going to make it to Boston. She must have dozed off, because she woke suddenly to the sound of the seatbelt sign chiming off. Her neck was at an odd angle, and she felt warm and more comfortable than she had in... Sarah's eyes flew open. She was leaning on the man's shoulder. Worse, Emma had somehow shifted so she was sprawled across both their laps, drooling on the man's expensive suit jacket, which he'd draped over her like a blanket. "Oh my God!" Sarah jerked upright. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to—" "Hey, it's okay." He smiled, gently adjusting Emma so she stayed asleep. "You both needed the rest. I've been right where you are." Sarah's face burned with embarrassment. She noticed his laptop was still open, but angled carefully so the screen light wouldn't shine on Emma. He'd been working around them this whole time. "Your jacket. We'll survive a little baby drool. Trust me, I've had worse." Sarah gently lifted Emma back into her own arms, trying to give the man his space back. But as she moved, her wallet slipped from her pocket, spilling its meager contents onto the floor. 2 crumpled dollar bills, a nearly empty debit card, a photo of Emma as a newborn, and an eviction notice that fell face up between them. Sarah scrambled to collect everything, but the man had already seen. His eyes caught hers, and she saw understanding there, not pity. Understanding was somehow worse. "I'm not," Sarah started, then stopped. What could she say? That she wasn't struggling, that everything was fine. The evidence was literally scattered across the airplane floor. "You're going to Boston?" he asked gently. Sarah nodded, throat tight. "My sister lives there. She said she'd help me get back on my feet." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "What kind of work do you do?" I was working at a cafe, making coffee, baking." Despite everything, a tiny spark of pride entered her voice. "I'm actually really good at it. I created this cinnamon roll recipe that people would line up for every Saturday morning." His eyebrows lifted with genuine interest. "Really? That's impressive." "Doesn't matter much now," Sarah said, the spark extinguishing. "Can't exactly bake when you don't have a kitchen." They sat in silence for a moment. Emma made a small sound in her sleep, her tiny hand curling around Sarah's finger. "Can I tell you something?" the man said. 20 years ago I was on a flight a lot like this one. I'd just been laid off from my job, my wife had left me, and I was flying to my brother's place with nothing but a suitcase, and about $40 to my name. I was so tired I fell asleep on the shoulder of the woman next to me, exactly like you just did. Sarah looked at him in surprise. When I woke up, she didn't make me feel bad about it. She just asked me what I was good at. I told her I was good with computers, with solving problems, with building systems. She gave me her business card and told me that when I got settled I should call her, that she always needed good problem solvers. He smiled at the memory. That call changed my life. She gave me a chance when I was at my lowest, and I never forgot it. She showed me that sometimes the help we need comes from the most unexpected places. Sarah felt tears welling up. "Why are you telling me this?" He reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card. "Because I believe in passing it forward, and because I think everyone deserves the kind of chance I got." Sarah took the card with shaking hands. Marcus Chen, CEO, Hometown Hospitality Group. Below it was a list of restaurant and cafe locations. Her heart stopped when she recognized one of the names. Famous cafe chain with locations across the country, known for their artisan pastries and community focus. You own?" "My company is always looking for talented bakers and cafe managers," Marcus said. "Especially people who understand what it means to work hard, to care about what they create, to not give up when things get difficult." He looked at Emma, still sleeping peacefully. "And especially people who understand that flexibility and family matter. We have on-site childcare at our corporate training facility in Boston." Sarah couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "I'm not promising anything," Marcus continued. "But if you're interested, call that number on Monday. Ask for Jennifer in HR and tell her Marcus from the flight sent you. Come in, show us what you can do, and we'll go from there. Fair?" I don't, why would you?" The tears were falling now, and Sarah couldn't stop them. "Because someone did it for me once," Marcus said simply. "Because your daughter deserves to see her mother catch a break. And because," he grinned, "any recipe that gets people lining up on a Saturday morning is something my cafes need to know about." Sarah laughed through her tears, a sound she hadn't made in weeks. Emma stirred at the sound, opened her eyes and gave Marcus a gummy, sleepy smile. "I think she approves," Marcus said softly. For the rest of the flight they talked. Marcus told her about his company, about the woman who'd helped him, a CEO herself, who'd since retired, but whom he still called every month. Sarah told him about her cinnamon rolls, about her dreams of one day opening her own bakery, about how she wanted Emma to grow up knowing that her mother never stopped trying. When they landed in Boston, Marcus helped Sarah get her suitcase from the overhead bin. "Call on Monday," he reminded her. "And Sarah, that recipe better be as good as you say." She smiled, really smiled for the first time in days. "It is, I promise." 3 months later, Sarah stood in the kitchen of Hometown Hospitality's flagship Boston Cafe, wearing a chef's coat with her name embroidered on it. Emma babbled happily in the on-site childcare center 2 floors down, where Sarah could visit her during breaks. The cinnamon rolls she'd created were now featured at 17 hometown cafes across New England. She'd been promoted from trainee to head baker, with a salary that meant she could afford a small apartment just for her and Emma. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. On her first day, Marcus had stopped by the kitchen. "So?" he'd asked. "Was I right about those cinnamon rolls?" Sarah had handed him one, still warm from the oven. He'd taken a bite and closed his eyes. "Okay," he'd admitted. "People should line up for these." Now as Sarah pulled a fresh batch from the oven, filling the cafe with the scent of cinnamon and butter and hope, she thought about that flight, about how close she'd been to giving up, about a kind man who'd let a stranger fall asleep on his shoulder and had somehow seen past her exhaustion and fear to the person she was trying to be. She'd asked him once why he'd really helped her. "You didn't know me," she'd said. "I could have been anyone." "That's exactly why," Marcus had replied. "Because you could have been anyone. You could have been me 20 years ago. You could have been my daughter if life had dealt her different cards." Kindness isn't about knowing someone's whole story. It's about recognizing their humanity when they need it most. Sarah thought about that often, especially on the days when she saw other young parents come into the cafe, looking tired and overwhelmed and like they were barely holding on. She always made sure to smile at them, to tell them their baby was beautiful, to slip an extra pastry into their bag, because she'd learned something on that flight. We're all just people trying our best, hoping someone sees us when we're struggling, and sometimes the smallest act of kindness, a shoulder to lean on, a card with a phone number, a chance when you need one most, can change everything. The timer dinged. Another batch of cinnamon rolls was ready. Sarah smiled and got back to work. Sometimes we fall asleep on strangers' shoulders. Sometimes strangers become the reason we wake up with hope. The question is, when you see someone struggling, will you be the shoulder they need?